What's up everybody, it's your boy Nate. Are you someone who has picked up video editing on your own and is oftentimes plagued with those questions of, am I doing this right? Or maybe you're someone who is pretty confident in your skills but just curious for ways to improve your skills? Well, today we're talking about the 5 most common video editing mistakes that you should absolutely avoid, not only because it'll make your life a lot easier in the long run, but you probably don't want to carry these bad habits into a group setting or a professional gig. If you're new here to the channel, we talk about all sorts of motion design, video editing, and VFX techniques. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the super dope stuff that we got planned. Anyways, I'm super excited. I know you are too. All right, let's go. So we asked our subscribers earlier this week on Instagram, what is the most important mistake to avoid when editing videos? And surprisingly, we ended up with not 1, but 5 different mistakes that just kept showing up time and time again. Now, these 5 mistakes may be things that you're doing right now, or they may be something that you've graduated from. But don't worry, not only are we gonna enlighten you about what is wrong with these mistakes, we'll also offer solutions that'll make your life a whole lot easier. So in a way, this video is just as much about the 5 mistakes to avoid as it is 5 tips that you can try right now that'll help improve your video editing. Anyways, the 5 on this list are no way in order of importance. These are things that you should just consider. However, the final one on this list is a mistake that I've made time and time again, and it held me back for years. So make sure that you stick around until the end so you don't miss out on that one. Let's hop right in. Okay, so first mistake on the list at number 5. This mistake I've seen beginners do time and time again when they're first starting out getting into video editing, and that is editing directly from the SD card. So let's say you've shot some footage, it came out super dope, it was an amazing shoot, and all of a sudden you're super excited and you just want to hop right into that project and get into editing. So what a beginner might do is actually just take out that SD card, plug it right into their computer, open up a Premiere project, and just start chopping away. Now, at first glance, nothing may seem wrong with this until all of a sudden a day may pass. That same video editor has to go work on another project or has to go shoot something else. So they take out that SD card, plug it back into their camera, have another awesome shoot, and the next thing you know, when they go back to their computer to start working on that project, they end up with the red missing footage of death screen. Now, for someone who's experienced, you already know what the problem is, but for someone who is a beginner, they may scratch their heads and think, well, I remember hitting save on Premiere, so why all of a sudden is it telling me that it does not know where my footage is? And the reason for this is actually because when you edit videos, Premiere does not save the videos itself into a specific folder or anything like that. Instead, it's just referencing whatever you tell it to reference. So if your footage is on an SD card and you plug it into your computer, the next time that you open up a Premiere project and that SD card is not inside of your computer, all of a sudden it has no idea where to look for it. Even worse, if you've already formatted that SD card for another video shoot, pretty much all of that footage is lost. So here's a little diagram showing how this works and what you should be doing differently to make sure that you don't run into this mistake. So when you have your footage taken from a camera, it gets saved onto an SD card, and that is where all of the footage is actually stored. So whenever you plug in your SD card into your computer, what you want to do is actually transfer over that footage from the SD card into a specific folder on your computer's hard drive or onto another drive that you specifically use for video editing. This way, whenever you pull up a Premiere Pro project or whatever video editing software you're using, it's instead referencing the footage that is saved onto your hard drive instead of one that's saved onto an SD card. Because let's face it, we're gonna need to use that SD card at some point for some other project, and SD cards tend to not be the best things to edit off of as well. Not only will saving and importing your footage first into a specific place on your computer save you the headache of having missing footage, but it will also run a whole lot faster. So yeah, make sure no matter what you do not edit directly from your SD card. Next up at number 4, this next mistake took me a few years to completely stomp out, so don't worry if you're still making this today. Just don't keep making this mistake after hearing it, and that is not organizing your footage. So oftentimes your camera will have a built-in naming system for their files, and these naming systems don't make any sense whatsoever. When we shoot on a Canon camera, most of the time the footage will automatically get named MVI underscore and then a series of numbers, which to this day, even after years of using Canon cameras, I have no idea what MVI means.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
It gets even worse on the Sony camera because I think it's like MSC, and I still don't even know what that means. I think it means maybe movie Sony camera. Something super weird, all right? So it makes sense that when I get into editing, I can't really rely on the footage names to help me organize footage and make sense of my project. A project can look super messy and really confusing to try to fine tune specific segments because I'll just have to be sifting around everywhere. Consider editing your footage almost like putting on clothes. Now, I'm sure in your house or wherever you guys are staying, you at least know where your underwears are gonna be, and maybe you know where your shirts and your pants are gonna be. But imagine if all of your clothes were strewn all over the place and you had no idea where things were. It would probably take you a really long time to get dressed. Yeah, so imagine if you just dump in all your footage, treat that almost like a room or a closet, and you don't want your room or your closet to be messy because that's just gonna hinder your ability to move around. So don't just dump all your clips on the floor and expect your mom to clean it up, because guess what? She won't. Instead, actually put them into bins, which you can do right inside of Premiere or most video editing software. The level of organization really depends on you, but on a basic level, at least think about where you're putting stuff. Where?
Seems like you already know where.
So how can you stop making this mistake today, right at the moment when you're importing footage? Well, I use a program called Auto Renamer, which has helped tremendously in the past few years. Pretty much, it'll automatically import my footage into folders named off of the date they were taken. So after years of having different video clips, I can actually go back to whichever date the footage was taken and just open up that folder and find all of those clips right there. Then whenever I import something into a project in Premiere, I make sure to use the bin feature so that things are not just randomly placed about, but instead I'll have a media folder for all of my different video clips and media and whatnot. I'll have an audio folder for just all of the audio. I'll even make sub bins so that all of the takes with me talking in them are called Nate takes in this little folder. Here's a quick look at some organization that I use, but you guys can obviously change this out for yourself. And at the base level, make sure that you name your project something other than Poop01 or Entitled 02. Another thing to make use of in Premiere is actually subsequencing out your layers. So if you have a bunch of different video clips layered and stacked on top of each other, you might want to go ahead and just select them all and then create a subsequence for that section. That way it's not super messy in your project. And if you actually have to go in and fine tune some things, you can just click into that subsequence. That's the way that all the top 10 crazy After Effects techniques or crazy Blender techniques videos get made, is because we actually create subsequences for those little sections of the video, which makes it a whole lot easier to go back and edit and reorganize and change. Pretty cool and super useful. Okay, this mistake right here at number 3. This next mistake that you should absolutely avoid when editing videos is having unmotivated cuts, which can be seen as having a cut maybe too early or too late or just completely randomly. So this means don't just cut video to cut video, actually have an intention behind the reason why you're adding a cut to your footage. Now, I know here on YouTube, I'll cut plenty of times, and at first glance, it may seem kind of random and may even feel unmotivated to the untrained eye, but it's actually carefully timed out and intentional with the words that I either say to add emphasis or even add an extra layer of meaning to whatever I'm trying to convey. So I don't just zoom in on my face here and there randomly. It's actually used to draw in the viewer whenever I'm introducing a new subject matter, because let's face it, see what I did there? That's a pun. Because let's face it, some of the stuff that I talk about can be pretty boring without a little bit of that extra layer of communication. Sometimes I'll also add in a cut from a close-up to a wide shot whenever I say the word but. That way I have that visual continuity to emphasize the change in subject matter. To a beginner editor, these may feel like things that you just do because you feel like it, and to some extent they're right, because it is a little bit about feeling out an edit and getting a sense of the pacing and rhythm for it. But at the same time, I can't stress enough just how important it is to actually be intentional and have a reason behind cutting your footage. Take for example these two fights from the Batman movies. One is from Nolan's Batman and the other is from a newer The Batman film. Now, action scenes is something that I think Nolan struggled with super hard in his first Batman movie, because take a look at this fight scene. There's just cuts pretty much every second. It's just going all over the place and it's really hard and unintelligible for the action. Whereas in this newer Batman film, notice that whenever there's a cut for a new action in the scene, it's used to show a different perspective and get a greater greater sense of the scene in general rather than just trying to add in emphasis to some fake punches here and there. So consider your shot when you're cutting, and don't just think because it's a fight to add cuts, but instead think, what do I want the viewer to see? What should they feel, and how should I convey that? Yo, it's getting down into the weeds. These are the final 2 mistakes to avoid. Now, this next mistake that you guys should absolutely avoid is super important, and that is not smashing the like button. All right, I'm just messing. Let's hop back into the video. Okay, now this one by far is the most important mistake to avoid, and that is not saving and not enabling autosave. Now, it sounds super simple, but I can't stress enough how many times this mistake has been made, or I'll see other video editors make this mistake. And guess what? Not only is it super scary, but it can completely break your spirit. Yeah, trust me, there's been times when I've actually edited a project for over 10 hours, and then all of a sudden Premiere froze, and I realized, holy I did not hit save at least once this entire freaking time. To make matters worse, this was at a time when the video was due at 8 a.m. and I had procrastinated the whole week. So I literally cried for a bit, laid my head down in defeat, and then had to suck it up and stay up for another 5 hours to finish that edit. From that day on, I vowed never to make that same mistake and to save frequently and often, as well as make sure that I turn on the autosave feature in Premiere so that this thing never happens again. Yeah, so don't make that same mistake. Turn on autosave, save frequently and very often, especially when using Adobe software, because they are notorious for crashing and just making people's heads explode. Okay, so here is the mistake you guys have been waiting for at number 1. Last but not least, the most common mistake that I've seen video editors make, and it's even one that I struggled with for years, that is not having a structure to your video edit. Now, a structure for a video edit could be compared to having a structure for an essay. Just think about it. For an essay, when you write one, you need at least an intro, a body paragraph or two, and then a conclusion. And even poems have their own little structures of different stanzas, as well as songs and whatnot. So why not have the same sort of mindset when going into a video edit? There's really no reason not to. So yeah, make sure you don't make that mistake. Now, a structure can take many shapes and forms. For some projects, the beginning, middle, and end may be super obvious, but sometimes people who are just beginning out video editing, they just drag in some clips, they chop stuff up, and they actually don't really have this sense of structure in mind when they're trying to make a final project. For example, here on YouTube, all of our videos will have an intro section followed by a bumper, which is that motion graphics that's branded saying Black Mixture, let's go. And then we'll have a setup, we'll have the content in there, and then at the end we'll have a little brief conclusion or a call to action. Not only does this make the videos much easier to think of and to edit, but it also makes it a lot easier and understandable for the viewers, because hey, our intro will introduce the topic that we're going to talk about. The bumper, which is that motion graphics, will let them know what channel they're watching. The setup is going to let them know what things to expect, and then the content is just bam, 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 delivering value to them. And then at the end, if they've stuck around that long, that conclusion is going to be there so they can follow up, and it's our opportunity to interact with the audience. Now, once you become more experienced, you can also become more versatile with your edits, the same way that different artists, after they've been writing maybe a lot of songs, will have more opportunities to experiment. Whoop-de-scoop-de-poop. Because hey, making videos, making songs, writing essays, it's an art form in itself, and even though there's structure, there's plenty rooms to experiment and have fun with it. Those techniques should help you become a better video editor. Of course, there's plenty of other mistakes that you should absolutely avoid I probably haven't even talked about. So if you guys have one in mind, why not leave it down below in the comments so that other video editors will get to benefit from your knowledge. Now, if you're interested in learning more techniques and video editing skills, I recommend you check out this playlist here, which covers different programs, crazy techniques, and more that will help you on your journey. I'm thankful for everyone who has been commenting, liking, and subscribing. You guys are the ones helping us build the greatest motion design community in the world. I know that's a bold claim and pretty ambitious, and I also know that it's something that we can absolutely do. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Peace.